So our next guest is a former safety in the National Football League, the NFL. Some of you have probably heard of that. He was born here in South Florida. He's a native. He attended South Dade Senior High, and then he played football at the University of Miami. I'm told he's being inducted into the University of Miami's Hall of Fame in the very near future. He was recognized at UM as a unanimous All-American. He was drafted in the NFL draft in the very first round. I think he was 8th overall, drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. Is that right? I hope I got that right. He also played for the Bears and the Giants, and he won a Super Bowl. This man has a Super Bowl championship ring, and we're so proud to have him here today, and we're fortunate to have him here today. And in fact, he's going to sign a football for us. He did sign. Look at that. He's that good. He's already signed the football. I'm proud. We're proud to have a native. It's always good when you have a native Floridian that takes it to the next level. I'm a second generation native. My dad was born here in Miami Beach, and I know we're few and far between. But Antler Rolle, everyone. Please put your hands together.
So this is my stage. How you doing?
You can stand or sit or whatever you want, or lay down.
Doesn't matter. So I guess we're speaking about diversity in the workplace, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Well, you know, in my profession, and I've been playing football since the age of 6. You know, diversity is what we live off on. You know, there's really not too much of a say-so that the owners, players, coaches really have to make, because it's based off, you know, obviously when you're young, your academics, because if you don't achieve your academics, you can forget about football. So that was always first and foremost in my house, you know, always be a student athlete, not just an athlete. Also, like diversity in our workplace is pretty stereotypical, but we all understand how it goes. You know, if you go on the offense side of the ball, for example, you're going to have the big white guys that are going to be blocking, going to be offensive linemen in most cases. You might have 70, 85% predominantly white guys blocking for the quarterbacks. More than likely, you're going to have about 80% white quarterbacks in the league. That's just how it goes. When you're talking about skill position, you're going to have maybe 15% white guys that's going to be outside wide receiver. 80%, you know, African Americans. Defense side of the ball, it's going to be predominantly African Americans on that side of the ball. That's just the way it happens, you know. But you know what the great thing about football, you know, obviously the competition is amazing. You know, that's why we all live and we thrive, and that's why we play the game. But the camaraderie is something like no other. You know, I've been retired for 3 years now, and I think what I miss most of all about playing is just the camaraderie in the locker room, you know, your brothers, because you see those guys more than you see your own family. You know, you're seeing those guys 6 days out of a week for, you know, extended periods of time. But it doesn't matter if it's, you know, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, yellow, green, purple, orange. At the end of the day, we all have one common goal, which is to wear that ring at the end of the season. So we're going to do anything and everything to make sure that we accomplish that. It takes a lot. It takes more than a lot. And I tell people all the time, winning the Super Bowl was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my 35 years of living, because it doesn't take one person, it doesn't take 2 people, it doesn't take 10 people. It takes an entire organization from the top down. And in my career, I say it's one of my biggest accomplishments, but it was actually losing a Super Bowl before actually winning. My first Super Bowl I went to was in 2009, Arizona Cardinals against Pittsburgh Steelers, and we lost maybe the last minute of the game. Probably one of the most hurtful feelings I've ever had in my life. You know, I'm a young guy. When I think of Super Bowl, I'm like, you know, this is the pinnacle. You have so many parties going on, so many festivities, so many people want to shake your hand, get your autographs, and you get caught up in the moment. So being a guy that was 25 years old, it was easy to get caught in the moment. Not saying that I necessarily did, but going back to when I was 28 years old and playing in my second Super Bowl, it was a totally different experience. As when I went when I was 25 years old, 24 years old, I was thinking more of, you know, enjoying myself because it was a Super Bowl. When I was 28, 29, I was like, damn everything else. This is my objective. My perspective was totally different. It was, you've done so much to get to this point. No one gave us a chance. Let's make sure we capture this, and then we'll really get to enjoy the festivities. And, you know, there was a lot of guys that weren't familiar with that situation. And, you know, being a guy, I've been there and I lost, I was able to tell them and actually inform them, like, listen, the festivities and everything that is going on is for the outsiders. We're here for one goal and one goal only, to win the Super Bowl. And I mean, come on, we're going against the best of the best, Tom Brady. You know, I mean, that guy is not an easy guy to beat. But diversity in the workplace is needed, is necessary. Some of my best and closest friends are white guys. Some of the guys that I probably hung out with the most and did more things when they had more in common was probably some of the white guys. Eli Manning gets a lot of heat because of his facial expression, but he's probably one of the biggest pranksters I've ever been around. But it's necessary. I think it creates an environment where us as kids can grow up and understand that anything is possible, and not just on the athletic level. You know, we're talking about doctors, lawyers, engineers. It doesn't matter what field it is, but you're gonna need diversity to take you to a better place, to take you to a different place. Because if I don't understand how this guy worked or how he grew up or his mentality, it's hard for us to correlate on the field, because it's all about chemistry. I need to be able to look at the guy next to me and not say a word, but understand exactly what page he's on, to understand exactly what he's thinking. That's how football works. It's about chemistry. It's about camaraderie. It's about brotherhood. You're never going to win if you don't have all three.
Thanks. I'm going to join you up here if that's all right. Maybe ask you a couple questions. We didn't rehearse this, as you can tell. Thanks for those comments, Antler. Actually, we've talked about some of these things that you said before. We talked about how with teamwork, diversity of opinions and diversity of perspectives leads to better decision making, and we think it's true. You know, we've had several panels talk about exactly that. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit from you, and that is on goals, because you talked about winning a Super Bowl, and I've often heard that from leaders that one of the scariest things about goals is actually achieving your goal, because then what do? And so I've been thinking about that today, actually, because we have this goal of having this conference today, and I have been so worried about it, and it's so far exceeded my expectations that now I'm panicking. What the heck are we going to do next year? That's what I've been thinking about all day. I'm freaking out about how are we possibly going to top this. And so I'm curious, when you win a Super Bowl, how do you think about what's next? I mean, what's it like to achieve a goal and then have to be motivated to do something else?
For example, for myself on a personal level, winning that Super Bowl, it was exhausting. It was the most draining thing I've ever endured, more so because I had so much on my plate, because I played several different positions throughout that year. And my coach would come to me before the game, and he's like, listen, Antler, I know you have a lot on your plate. If it's too much, let me know. And I prided myself on being a student of the game. You know, I never was a real huge note taker. I was more of a visual learner. And the study sheet was front and back. It was front and back. It was the biggest game plan I've ever seen in my life. And I remember going through the practices that week, and we were honestly moving so fast that I was scared that we were peaking too early. Like, our practice they were honestly perfect. They were perfect. And I just remember feeling the best I've ever felt in my life. And I'm like, man, like, I feel like I'm flying around too fast. Like, it's going too good. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. But in all actual reality, nothing was wrong. We were just clicking at the same time. We were all gelling. We were all on the same page at the same time. And once you embrace once you embrace that moment and you win something as huge as a Super Bowl, my goal wasn't fulfilled, because I knew if I won one, I could win another one. You know, I'm extremely greedy. You know, and I tell people, you know, I have 10 fingers, and if I can fill them all up with rings, so be it. But that was always my goal. I've never been complacent with, okay, I'm in high school, you're being recruited by the University of Miami. Okay, big deal to some people. It wasn't enough for me. Going to the NFL, I never really had dreams of going to the NFL. I just loved to play the game. And once my junior year came around, I saw a magazine with one of the top corners, and my coach asked me, well, are you going to stay for your senior season? I'm like, what do you mean? And I had no idea that I was ranked as high as I was, because I was just that dumbfounded. I just loved to play the game. I didn't really care about the money, the accolades, and all those other things that came with it. I just loved to play the game. And I had many tests, many trials and tribulations throughout the tenure of my 11-year NFL career, but I always believed in myself. I always believed in never pouting, keep your head down, stay focused. Your drive, your motivation, your talent is going to take you wherever you need to go, because I always knew that I was a unique player. I didn't need anyone else to tell me that. I knew with my brains and my athleticism together, I knew that I would make a dynamic player. And I just fulfilled that. And the thing about leadership is not about what you do, but it's about what you can get others to do. It's not about what page you're on. It's about if you can get others to exceed and play beyond the X's and O's, play beyond their expectations. And I learned that at the University of Miami, because being there was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Ever. It was suicide on wheels. I can't think honestly of the time when I was at University of Miami and the training we did and the mindset. We were tough mentally. We didn't have to be the best athletes. We were extremely tough mentally. So when we played the games on Saturday, it was like a practice for us.
How do you stay so tough and so disciplined now when you don't have a coach and a schedule and a game coming up? How do you continue on with your success?
Well, I grew up in a very structured household. You know, my mom was a counselor. My father was a police officer, and I believe it was 1999 or 98. My father became the first black police chief down in Homestead. And I remember just hearing, you know, around the neighborhood, just around the community, oh, you know, we'll give him 6 months. We'll give him 6 months, you know, he'll be out of there. And, you know, it was 2018, and he's still there. You know, they've renewed his contract several times. You know, he's tried to retire, but they honestly won't let him retire. And, you know, for me, that meant everything, because for one, I know where my dad came from. I know how hard it is to remain in the position that he's in. And more importantly, I knew all the doubters that he had. So for him, he was like, I remember him telling me, do you know what your last name means? And I'm like, what? And I remember him telling me, he's like, you're a role. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know my last name. And he's like, that means you're never to be denied. So for me, and I get worked up because it's a lot. You know, we've been through a lot as a family, and, you know, everyone sees the glam and the shine, but no one really knows what you go through, and it's a lot. It's really a lot. So as a son, and I get worked up because now I just think about my own son. Hold on, give me a second. Sorry. But
How old's your boy?
3. You know, you have to instill certain type of morals and goals and value, and they have to be tough, because you're gonna go through extremely tough times. And I always tell them, you know, tough times never last, but tough people always do. So for my dad, he was the easy one. My mom was the tough one. You know, my mom was a tough one, but he always made sure, and he spoke to us very rarely. He would never really say too much, but when he spoke volumes. He's like, you go out there, you do what you need to do, you take care of business. You never let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. And we hear that all the time. And, a lot of people, may go in one end out the other. But for me, it stuck. It stuck, and it didn't just only stick on the football field. It stuck in my goals and my values of how I raised my son and how I carry myself in the day-to-day life and who I want to be remembered as. Do I want to be remembered as, okay, Antler, the football player, or Antler, the person? To me, Antler, the person, will always outweigh Antler, the football player. And, things like that you can never put a price on, and, it's value.
Amazing. Anyone have any questions? I've been hogging the mic.
Antler, thank you for coming today. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Question. So you mentioned that in your experience, the way that you saw your teams kind of elevate to Super Bowl championships and Super Bowls was to get players to go beyond expectations. What are some of the tips that you can tell us about that you learned from the leaders, whether it be yourself in later years or others on the team or in the organization, that may have helped get people to achieve beyond expectations? So for us who in business, as an example, we might be able to help that.
Well, I think first and foremost, it has to be self-inflicted. It has to be self-inflicted. That's first and foremost. Second of all, it's not about necessarily what you say, but more so about what you demonstrate. And in my lifetime, I've experienced several different types of leaders. Some that are extremely vocal and passionate. Then you have some that might not say a whole lot of nothing, but what they demonstrate is powerful. So I think just understanding that she is going to be different from her. He's going to be different from me. And knowing how to relate to each individual separately, that's what makes a leader. Because I understand, for example, my coach would get on me extremely hard. And the cornerback next to me, my coach would sit there and do this. And it would drive him insane. Wouldn't say a word. But he knew what that meant. He knew that he didn't have to get on him. He knew all he had to do was just look at him. So I think understanding your environment and understanding them as a person, you can't lead unless you understand them on and off or in and out of the workplace. You're not going to understand them. So what we would do in the football world is we would have a card night every Thursday or go out to dinner every Friday. I want to understand. I want to see some of the people you hang with. Bring your girlfriends. You might have 1, 2, 3. Bring them. Doesn't matter. But I want to know what your life is like outside of football because that's going to help me understand you as a person. Once I understand you as a person, then I can relate to you on and off the field that much better. So I think that's the biggest thing when you're talking about bringing someone or elevating their level. And always, positive. I believe in constructive criticism. I believe in brutal truth. That's what I know. But it also helped me along the way because if you think for 1 second that you're this person that you're really not, and then once that reality hit, it's going to show you exactly who you are. So brutal truth is the only way, and it's not to be frowned upon. It's not to attack, but to let them know, okay, you have to work on this because you might think that you're good, but you're really not that good. And come Sunday, we're going to show you that you're really not that good. So this is what you do. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out. So if you want to stay after practice and work at this for 30 minutes, that's good. We'll grind, and then eventually on film, and when you look in the mirror, you'll understand exactly who you are. But let them know you have to be honest, and you have to give them the God-honest truth because otherwise, you're enabling them of being, as successful, being the person that they can be.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. I just have one more on the honesty, and I have to say it. I'm so sorry. University of Florida, the Gators are awesome, right? I mean, you can be honest.
That was my first choice.
Yes.
They were my first choice until I stepped foot on University of Miami campus.
How about a round of applause for Antler Rolle?
Thank you.